Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello, people, and well, I thought Dan would do the intro. Like, it's just StreamYard did this to me. It's not me who did this. It's StreamYard who did this. He put you in the middle, so maybe you should do the intro.
No, I'll leave it to you, Mo. You're the expert.
Big up everybody that is here. This is your Rational League show with Rory back. Good to have you back, Rory, after the Paris travels for you. Patrick is here, of course, after a stinker by Manchester City the weekend against Southampton. That was kind of weird, a strange game, of course. Dan is here, and Jamie's story about, if you haven't watched Dan's short about Jackson, it was on Instagram. It is absolutely glorious, to be honest. The amount of anger in that video about Jackson, it was very, very strange. But Arsenal come back against Liverpool, of course. There's a lot to talk about in that game, but also there are new links to Arsenal actually going very, very big in the summer with Eucharist. Zubamendi is done over the line. There is a link to Leao. This if Nick Williams is not coming in, do we think Leao suits Arsenal nowadays? Do we think Leao suits Arsenal? Is this how do Arsenal will play next season and all of that? Chelsea in the top five, of course. Now it's a must-win versus Manchester United and Nottingham Forest. Of course, Liverpool already won the league, booing Trent and all this stuff, and they're still obsessed with Isak. Patrick is here to talk about Manchester City, who played Bournemouth, I think, and Fulham in the last two games. The top five race is actually heating up. I want to know what people think. And I just want to start with welcome, everybody. I hope that you guys are having a good Monday. Content is a bit like kind of down until like the Champions League final and the Europa League final a little bit, and the top five race, of course. And I want to start with the Arsenal, but I want to start first with the Arsenal versus PSG. And I want to ask, because I haven't met Rory, and I'm so intrigued to know what Rory thinks about this game. Do you agree with Mikel Arteta saying that the best team went out, that you were in the stadium, you saw more things than us. You saw more things than us in the game, to be honest. Do you think the best team went out? There's no band and nothing. Do you think that Arteta was right to say that Arsenal were the best team over the two legs?
No, because we didn't score the goals that we needed to. And I think there's an element that he doesn't factor in, which is individual ability across the board in those moments. So Donnarumma was better than our attacking players, and that is a factor. So I understand where he's coming from in terms of like he's a control freak, he's a number freak, and the underlying numbers suggested that we should have won the tie. But that isn't how football works, and I think that's something he has to use this summer. And I think he did mention it. Someone in the chat said he did factor that in a later interview, and I think he did. He's often the victim of little segments of what he says getting cut out and then taken out of context and used against him. But no, we were good. We were good, and I look at the first 15 minutes of the first leg. They dominated us. They took one of their goals. Dembele shins it into the ground, and it goes in off the post. We go to Paris. We dominate the first 15 minutes in a very similar way. Ødegaard hits one of the strikes of his life. Donnarumma makes an unbelievable save. Like, there are moments like that that I say you can't control. You can to an extent. You can get a 6'9" fucking goalkeeper in the form of his life. But yeah, I can understand why Arteta said it. I think he clarified that, you know, there were other factors. And yeah, ultimately, I just don't think it was a massively negative experience across the two legs.
Reaching a semi-final of the Champions League is not that bad. People just take it as it's just a bad campaign. It wasn't a bad campaign for Arsenal. You came third in the group stage where everyone didn't think that, behind Barcelona and Liverpool. You beat Real Madrid. I'm just being objective. You beat Real Madrid when everyone said you're not going to beat them. You played the game against PSG, and people use the word crash out, and I don't think that is like fair to use against Arsenal. The problem happens in the league, which is we're going to come to. But before we do that, over 500 people in the house. People, welcome everyone, of course, that joined us from the football terrace. So hit that like button, guys. We have 50 likes and 500 people watching. That is 10% delivery. So hit that like button. All the guys' channel is in the description as well, with Rory, Dan, Patrick, Staffy, Tom, and Jamie, of course, the football story. Hit that like button, people, if you're here. Let's get at least to 200 likes. About the game yesterday, did we learn anything from the game yesterday? Did anybody watch this game and you learn something about Arsenal next season, or the fight and the spirit and all the things that people said, like objectively? Or that was just another football game that didn't matter? There's a massive background. Someone is moving something. And then, am I the only one hearing this?
No, I can hear tables. I can hear tables moving, but that's not
No,
here.
okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I it's difficult. Like, there were things to take away from it from an Arsenal perspective. I think the way we fought back in the second half, I think is just a good sign generally in terms of like the mentality of that team for a game where we were 2-0 down off the back of Paris. The team are knackered. They could have looked at it and gone like it doesn't matter if we lose, we'll just beat Southampton on the final day and we'll still like. I think that fight back was good. In terms of the level, I just think it's difficult to know. Arsenal didn't have the entire core of our team. Liverpool are on holiday. Like, you could tell the way that Liverpool were not intense at all through large parts of that game. Neither were Arsenal at points. It's just I think if you sit there and try and take anything major away from that game, you'll come to the wrong conclusion, because it's just not it's just not.
Yeah, I'm like, I thought about it the same. I was watching El Clasico in the same time, and I'm like, Liverpool, Arsenal, yes, intense and everything, but they're like, do you think anyone is going to make a conclusion that Martinelli now is good on the left wing next season for Arsenal because he scored a goal here and there? Not really, to be honest. I still think that there is massive holes in this Arsenal team. The striker is there, Thomas Partey, which is why Zubamendi is there. Thomas Partey has been Arsenal's best midfielder this season, but still his legs are here and there, you know, like you're going to get Zubamendi. Martin Ødegaard taking a couple of shots doesn't change my opinion that he's lacked creativity a lot this season, that his GA went down and he needs to go back to his best, or Arsenal need to sign an attacking midfielder. For Liverpool, Salah is still in 46 GA. He's chasing the record, but not that intense. He was happy for his teammates to score. People are not changing their mind about Diaz. That's what I took from the game. The most important part of the game was them bowing Trent and the banner they did. I think so.
I think that the headlines are going to be that, though. Do you know what I mean? Because, as Rory said, the game didn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So, like, they obviously want to get something out of it where they can talk about, this is the headline, was Liverpool fans booing Trent. And everyone's going to have their opinion on it. But, like, personally, I don't think you should be booing him. You can obviously have your feelings or frustration about him leaving the club, and that's fine. But, yeah, I don't know. I think there was obviously talk after the game saying Slot shouldn't have had him in the team, probably. And I think that's probably the right thing to do. It's just like, take him out of the squad now. Obviously, he'll be there to lift the trophy at the end of the season and be on the bus parade and stuff. But, like, as far as most Liverpool fans are concerned, he's a Real Madrid player now. Do you know what I mean? And that's how they're going to feel about the situation, because he's thinking about, like, okay, what are my goals for next year? And that's not at Liverpool. So, like, what's the point in having him playing, even like to come on and like try and change the game against Arsenal. It's like he's like doesn't really impact me in any way. Do you know what I mean? But on the game itself, yeah, I thought it was just I thought it was good. I think you understood why Arsenal are a good team. Like they get bantered a lot of the time, and I said this. I did a post match and I was talking about this. Like Arsenal are a good
objective
team.
talk. Oh my god, it's the Rational League.
The
Welcome
Rational League.
everyone.
But,
Oh my god, welcome everyone. Nah.
I think with the whole situation of like like the Madrid game. So after the Madrid game, people were talking about, oh, like this is unbelievable from Arsenal. Like they're on cloud nine and stuff. And then like the drop of a hat, they lose to PSG, and people are saying like they're bottlers and X, Y, and Z.
Crap
like,
team, team.
It's not the same situation. You know, it's the same team. And I think you have to give them credit. Like they were on the back of 3 losses. They'd lost to PSG twice. They'd lost to Bournemouth, and then 2-0 down at Anfield. They could have just wilted. And I think even in the grand scheme of it doesn't matter. But to still have the resolve to come back, Arteta, I think Robertson said after the game that Arteta changed a few things, and it made it a little bit more difficult for Liverpool to manage. And Arsenal got the rewards in the end. I
remember he's a bad coach. Remember, he's a bad coach.
Listen, we said this a few weeks ago as well, right? People say Arteta will never get Arsenal back to top 4. He's a championship manager at best. Then he does that and gets them competing for a league, and then it's like, oh,
Arteta will never get to the knockout stage of the Champions League.
He'll never get to, exactly.
Arteta will never reach a Champions League final. He gets it to a Champions League.
Yeah,
like, it is like
they're ever changing.
Yeah, 100%. Looking at this Arsenal team next season, I want to get like the Arlington. One of the things I titled in this video is that do you think Salah will replicate this season? The reason why I'm saying that, because I think if Salah replicates this season with the additions that Liverpool will have, I think Liverpool will retain the title. That is my opinion about it. But actually, I don't think it's unrealistic from us to think that a player will have a historic season back-to-back. That never happened. Unless you're Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo at Barcelona, where you break your record the season after. Salah has had 2 goals and 1 assist in February, if I'm not mistaken. I'm a big Salah supporter, of course. I'm Egyptian. I love the guy. But I think it's unrealistic from Liverpool fans or Arsenal fans or City fans or any Premier League fan or the rivals to think that Salah will go next season and still have a 50 GA season in the league only, like he's about to do or something like this in the season. And with Arsenal signing a Zubimendi, linked to Eucharist, and trying to get like a left winger, I think that there will be a better title race next season. It won't be, unless there are massive injuries. Especially we'll look at City. We'll talk about City a little. City will need a massive rebuild after Kevin De Bruyne goes. Like the defenders are not doing well, like the wingers are not the same as back in the days. So for people to assume that Arsenal will not be in a title race, they will not have a chance of winning it, you already bottled it 3 years, I think it's so disingenuous from some people, to be honest, because there will be a title race next season and Arsenal will be strong, along with Liverpool as well, who will add a striker, will add a midfielder, will add a left winger. So I think people just taking it out of, you bottled it in this season. That's what I think. Do you guys think the same, that Arsenal next season will be as competitive as the last 2 seasons? It will not be the same as this season. It will be much better for Arsenal this season without the injuries. People take the injuries out of the context, which is whatever. Like this, I don't want to do this here. But do we think with Arsenal signing a Leao or a Newcastle or Zubimendi, can they be like within like the title race? Or is it going to be pressure on Arteta? No, he's not going to win games.
I think pressure will be on. I think we said this the last day as well, Mo. The whole like the build up of like say constantly progressing with Arteta is that they've like say semi-final Champions League, they're second in the Premier League, and like that's where they're at the minute. And I think next season, if they obviously spend heavily in the summer, if they have a bad start, I think a lot of pressure will start to come on them because the expectations have changed now, and they want the next progression. As I think, who said it? I think Gary Neville actually said it on the podcast. We just, as the football fan in today's age, we just crave immediate success. It's like it has to be now. We can't wait. And that's the way just the way football fans are at this day and age. And I think Arteta, if he does spend big in the summer and he has a bad start, then I think a lot of pressure will start to come on him. And whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I think next season he will be expected to deliver. I don't think there'll be another season of second or semi-final.
Yeah, my problem is, I'm going to let Rory down. My problem is the amount of people that switched on Arteta because of the PSG game. But you went on this season not expecting Arsenal to go to the Champions League. You said that Arsenal have a 10% chance against Real Madrid already. I understand if someone from the beginning of the season is saying Arteta's not good. Fine. I will respect you. I respect your opinion. But to switch because of the PSG game, I think it's just kind of strange.
They were waiting, though, isn't it? They were waiting, some of these people. Like, if you talk about that, if you're talking about, like, Arsenal fans in general, some of them were waiting for this. They were waiting, like, that's how bad it is for Arteta. I think even the ones who keep saying, let's back the manager, they're still waiting for him to fail. And it's unfair for him, because what you've just mentioned, right, where he picked them up from, if you start looking at if we move banter aside, where he's picked them up from, and if you start looking at the team, he's actually improved things. And maybe some people, when they say, look, if we fire him, where do we go? I think they're right, because you have to be scared, because what he's doing is actually progress. But I'm telling you, there are people who have just noticed, even when I looked at some of the content creators that were not Arteta out or were saying, oh, this manager is doing well. The way they switched on him, I was like, these guys were just waiting. They were waiting. They've been waiting for something. But he's right what he's saying. Next season, like for me, the Zubamende thing, as a rival fan, it's hurt me. I don't know. I'm just saying, how do they manage the Declan Rice and Zubamende? When did they start these talks? How is Arsenal doing these background talks? Remember when City went for Rice? It was too late. They said they have been speaking for him for almost a year. And now Zubamende looks like he rejected other teams and is going there. And as soon as they get a striker, as soon as they get a left winger, and maybe they fix the left back and a few things, he's going to be with the big boys now. I think right now Arteta is going towards the big boys. And as a big boy now, you have to bring a trophy. I think people will start giving what's the name for it? You know how they're looking at him now, like, oh, we keep saying he's an airy man. I think now they'll be like, nah, you're with the big boys. We don't count you as Arteta anymore. You have to perform. Because the excuse from years has been, oh, he doesn't have his striker. We need another number 10. Oh, no, we might need somebody for Thomas Partey. Partey sometimes he's always injured, but Partey played a lot this season. So where it's going right now, it's going to be in and out. But I'm just surprised that you're right. Some people, the way they switched, I'm shocked. It just took the PS.
But why?
Because
explain to me why.
Because Arteta has always been the underdog. Let's be honest. He was Pep Guardiola's. Okay, I'm gonna say this. Obviously, the Russian show, but I'm gonna say this. They called him Pep Guardiola's tower man. This guy's the one who's picking up the towers. He's going to go, as you say, he's going to go to Arsenal. He's not going to succeed. And then now he succeeds and he actually competes and he surprised City and he surprised yourself because nobody thought he could go toe-to-toe with that City team. Then he goes toe-to-toe with the City team again. But I think the doubters, even though when they were looking at that, they were just keeping quiet, but deep inside they were like, let's just wait until he fails so that we can go after the board and say they should have put a manager who's more mature, a manager who's more ready. So I don't know, man. That's all I can say. But for me, I think this man it's always been against him. And I hope he doesn't fall down to the pressure because I'm still thinking of that interview he had. I was like, is the pressure getting to him? Because that interview after PSG was just mad. That's all I can say.
And even the interview yesterday was a little bit crazy. He does like he says a lot of things that don't make sense now. And I think he's feeling some of the pressure of the fans. I'm not sure about the fans in the stadium. Are they turning on him or not? Some of them. I actually don't know. But
not really.
If I'm looking...
I think it's one of those things, again, it's what I said all along, was that context has to be applied. If Arteta had a relatively easy season in terms of there hadn't been injuries and we hadn't had some crazy red cards and everything had kind of gone our way, but we still hadn't got over the line, I think a lot more Arsenal fans would obviously be like, okay, that's a bit concerning. But I think you look at where we've lost the trophies as well. We got knocked out of the FA Cup by Man United, where we had like 3.5 XG to their like 0.5. Okay, well, and then you have the 2 semi-finals. Across the 4 semi-final legs that we played against Newcastle and against PSG, we created like 9.5 XG and scored 1 goal. Like that is statistically not going to happen again, and it falls back on the fact that we don't have a striker. And it's like, well, we knew that going into the season. We know Arteta has wanted a striker for a long time. It's not been given to him, and people say, oh, it was his choice to go and sign Kai Havertz. Well, it wasn't. He has wanted Isak for 2 seasons. He wanted Vlahovic before that. He wanted Watkins in January. And so it's like, okay, now you give him a striker in the summer and he has a relatively injury-free season. Not like no injuries, but just the average run of the
regular guy
yeah.
missed like 3 games, 4 games here. Like,
yeah, you have that, and you still don't win a trophy. Then I think a lot more people would be like, okay, now there's nothing left to kind of, reason with. But until that, I just think you look at the way other teams have fallen off, especially the fact that we've even managed to get to the Champions League semi-final and still keep ourselves in second in the league. Like, it's not bad. It really could be a whole lot worse. That's for sure.
Yeah, Dan, can I ask you something? Do you think a cup next season is good enough for Arsenal if they have an injury-free season, or it must be the league or the Champions League?
I think they have to win the trophy. I just don't think for Arteta's safety he can go another season without winning one, because I think the pressure will only multiply. I think he has to win something. I mean, even preferably for him, the League Cup would do him a massive favour, because it would just buy him a little bit more time with some of the louder noise that's being aimed at him at the moment. Look, I think he's done a really good job. I sort of questioned what he said after the PSG game. I wasn't sure that they were the best team in the Champions League, and I think that raised a lot of question marks for people. And I understand what he might tell the players, but I think sometimes you have to come out and say something different to the press. And I just think the last 10 games have surprised me a little bit in the Prem. I mean, I was looking at the form guide. I think Arsenal sat around 9th, 10th, 3 wins in the last 10. It's a patch of form I probably didn't see coming. And by the time the season finishes, the points regression will be bigger than what I probably expected it to be. So for that, I think Arsenal have to do better next season. And I think winning a trophy would sort of calm the storm a little bit that's brewing if things don't start to improve or a trophy doesn't arrive.
For me, I don't think the cups are for Arsenal enough, for me.
Like, you're talking about big trophies now.
Yeah, I am thinking that Arsenal must at least do very, very well in the Champions League.
They're not even current, as well as they've done. They're not currently winning any trophies, and they haven't done for a while now. So I almost feel like, as much as we can say this Arsenal team are that good, I still think they need to just go and hit a checkpoint, get a trophy in the bag, and just kind of go, look, Arteta can win trophies if he wants to. If he wants to focus on something and go and win it, he can do. Just to remind people that he might be the right person for the job. Because I think without that, people will start to make that argument louder and louder.
There was an argument yesterday that was presented that maybe, for
example, won an FA Cup, by the way, with a team that has now been completely dismantled. I know people are going to say he's won something, but it's been a while.
Yeah, AMT is saying they expected to beat PSG because of the beat Real Madrid. Expectations kill Arteta and Arsenal. It's always the expectations, to be honest.
But I think that's something I think that needs sort of focusing on, is how good they looked in that tie against Real Madrid, who are second in the Champions League. And I understand they were motivated, in the La Liga. They're motivated for that fixture more than what they probably are in the Premier League in recent weeks. They've had to rotate as well. But I mean, they've only lost 1, but to draw as many as they have and not pick up more points in the last sort of 10 games, when you can beat Real Madrid in the manner that they did, that's where I've sort of... I
think that's irrelevant, though. Like, in the same way that in the same way that you're seeing United and Spurs turn up in the Europa League, but getting smoked by shit teams in the Premier League.
They're in a slightly different... Like, it's way easier to lose motivation, I think, in their position, knowing that they're completely safe, but they just, there's no point in them even fighting for anything. The fact that you'll probably be fine, but the fact that you've very nearly been sort of brought back in and reined back into a battle for the Champions League is something I just didn't think Arsenal would be in this season. I just didn't think you'd be that many points off the tally you got in the last couple of seasons.
But if we'd still been in the title race, I don't think we would have ended up dropping all of these points. Like, it's
right, I hear
you. Yeah, it's very, very clear. You look at some of the mistakes that they've been making, some of the especially when we've dropped points from going 1-0 up, which happened in 3 consecutive games at the Emirates, where we went 1-0 up and then dropped points. I don't think that happens necessarily if we're still in the title race.
Do you think you'd still be in the Champions League had you been more motivated in the Premier League? Because I just feel like losing the winning momentum and that sort of falling away is a recipe for disaster in the biggest time.
I don't think so. Because again, like, I feel like we did it in many ways. We did enough to beat PSG over the 2 legs. I don't feel like we lost to them because they outperformed us in every way. It was just, moments effectively that changed that tie. So I don't know how much more we could have done, honestly, against PSG. Like, and then people say injuries, but I do think you bring back in Gabriel, you bring back in Kai Havertz. Those two alone.
Oh yeah, massive amount of it comes down to squad building and injuries in Arsenal's season. That's also huge earlier on in the year. I think the fact that the title was done probably comes down to those reasons. I think by the time we got round to this sort of business end with the Champions League, it probably comes down to those other players being out injured. But also, I just feel like I would have been more confident in my team if we were up the top of the form guide and we were still trying to win games and we were still trying to be as close as possible to who we were challenging that season. Just that you were more ruthless in the tie that was there. I agree with you, by the way. I think actually thinking about how that Arsenal sort of leg went, I don't think you were that far off, but I just feel there was something missing.
I think one thing as well that people say on social media, and it's always like they say about Arteta, is he has to win a Premier League, he has to win a Champions League. And I understand that that's the benchmark nowadays, but think about how difficult it is for a team, especially like your first one in like an extended period of time, to actually do it. Like Chelsea, Man City and Liverpool are the only teams in the last decade to win a Premier League, and the same in the Champions League. They've only won 3 Champions Leagues in 10 years from English teams. So it's not as if like it's not as easy as just saying Arteta has to go out and win a Champions League. Like it's a huge step to go on and actually do that. And that's where Arsenal are at the minute. And even like if they go out and sack, people are saying go out and sack and bring in, I don't know, Conte or Ancelotti, whatever manager you want to bring in. It's not automatic guarantee that they're going to go on and do what they all want them to do. And then like, it's because they don't have success. They need a change. Because they don't have what's almost impossible for so many teams in the last 10 years to do, that he should be gone. Which I think is, as we were saying earlier, it's just like this whole thing of success, or bust, which is not right in the same way.
Yeah, if you had told Arsenal fans before the season kicked off, this season you're going to beat Real Madrid 5-1, you're then going to narrowly lose a Champions League semi-final. And by the way, in those games, you're going to be playing with Miles Lewis-Skelly at left-back, who at the start of the season was a 17-year-old who had not played a single senior minute. You're going to be playing with Jakub Kiwior as your left centre-back. You're going to be playing with Mikel Merino up top. First game, you're not even going to have Partey either. Yeah, I think if you'd said that, I think Arsenal fans were going, okay, I don't know what the fuck's happened in this season for us to end up in that place, but that's not the end of the world. So I then think for that certain group to turn around at the end of that PSG game and go, no, we didn't win, so sack him. Yeah. And then you look at the other teams, like people talk about Arteta spent 750 million. Okay, but Arsenal Football Club have spent 750 million in that 5 years. Well, Chelsea have spent more, United have spent more, Spurs have spent more. They've rotated through managers and they've gone backwards. So it's like this idea that change the manager, you're guaranteed to then go up a level and not down a level or down multiple levels. Yeah, it's just I just think it's a bit crazy. And going into next season, Arsenal will be one of the favourites to win the Premier League, one of the favourites to win the Champions League. United, Spurs, and Chelsea are not going to be in that situation, not even close to it. So, yeah.
I think as well, like even the Man City and like Liverpool, like we talk about like money spent. Like the reason Man City don't spend near as much money now is because they've invested so heavily in the lead up to like the last decade, where they were like they sell players like Sterling, Zinchenko, like there's a list of names that you can go on about, and that's why their net spend is so much lower. And when it comes to all those money leagues, they're lower than most. But the fact is that they have a huge squad that they can, like, anytime a player becomes valuable, they can either sell them, like Alvarez last summer, for example. So yeah, I just think like we kind of jump on this bandwagon all the time about like we need a sack manager, but like it's very difficult to do what Arsenal are trying to do. And I think even the fact that they're kind of punching where they are, and people say 750 million, but like it takes a long time. Liverpool went 30 years without winning the league. It takes a long time to actually get that first one over the line. And like it took them 30 years, and then they're after winning the second in 5 years. You know what I mean? Once you get that hump off your back, like it's the same with United. It's going to take United a good while to get back to that kind of level because they haven't done it in so long. It's just takes time.
I mean, going into next season, as it stands, Thomas Partey and Leandro Trossard will be the only 2 players that are over the age of 28. Like this is still a relatively young squad. For the majority of the squad that were in that semi-final, it was the first time they played in a Champions League semi-final, and only the second time that they'd ever played in like a big knockout game. So yeah, I just feel like clearly there is a lot being built, and ripping it all apart because you didn't win a close Champions League semi-final is a bit crazy.
Going on the transfers, and where do you think? How do you think Zubamendi, and how do you think? Number one, do you think Leao fits Arsenal at all?
I think he does in some ways, and he doesn't in others. It depends if Arteta wants to free up our wingers a little bit more to just let them have a bit more attacking freedom. Like, even you look at the game yesterday, how many times did you see Salah in a complete 1v1 against Miles Lewis-Skelly, where there's no one else even, even trying to come back and help? Like, that was happening quite a lot. Whereas you witness it the other way, you've got Saka dealing with 2 or 3 men every single time. And it's a Leao, for me, is the player that you bring in to beat the teams that we drop points against that we shouldn't. So when you draw or lose to a West Ham, or you draw or lose to a Fulham or whatever, he's the sort of player that can unlock those games. Do you want him in a big game where you want your wingers to be tracking back in the way that Martinelli does? Maybe not. I don't know if he can be coached to do that. But I do feel like we need kind of some mavericks, someone that genuinely like frightens the opposition on the opposite side to Bukayo Saka, so that teams aren't so willing to just commit everyone shifting over to Saka's side and happily leaving Trossard or Martinelli in a 1v1 because you back them not to take the opportunity.
Can I tell you what Leao does? Oh, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say, the one thing as well, I think with how Liverpool play and how Arsenal play, I think that even we kind of saw a little bit of it yesterday. Arsenal are a lot more measured in terms of like how they build up. It's a bit more slow. So when the ball actually does get to Saka, I think teams filter back. And that obviously doesn't help him in those certain situations. But he does have the quality to obviously score and create chances. But I think with Liverpool, and I see in The Athletic did a piece on this as well, that Van Dijk actually goes longer now than he did with Klopp in terms of getting the ball out to Salah. And that's why I think we see so many opportunities. That's probably why he scored so many goals and got so many assists this season. Because if he's one-on-one, and Saka would be the same, if he's one-on-one, the caliber of player that they are, they're going to get goals, they're going to create chances, and they're going to get assists. And I think that's something I think if I was Arteta, I would look at that and say, maybe it's not like a carbon copy, but like just playing in different ways. It doesn't always have to be like set pieces or building out from the back. Sometimes it's okay to go long and try and spread a defense, and then you can kind of pick up the pieces a little bit. I think that's one thing I would probably say needs a little bit more improvement, because I think in the second half of this season, I think they've become a little bit predictable, which hasn't helped them in terms of.
Can I tell you what Leao offers that a lot of wingers don't offer in the league? Leao will make Arsenal the team that people adapt to. The opposition's manager will ask their fullback not to go forward just to compensate. That happens in Serie A, even though Milan are bad. Because when Inter play AC Milan, because how quick Leao is, because Leao basically is very strong, very tall, very quick, tricky. So the opposition's manager will adapt to that. Some Arsenal fans, but he doesn't work hard. He's a diva. He doesn't do this. Yeah, but sometimes you need to have that player. So Pep or Slot or other manager will say, my fullback, don't go forward because there is Leao there. If we turn over the ball and the ball gets to him, he scores. And I think that's what Arsenal don't have. You know what I mean? Saka tracks backs, Odegaard, Martinelli, they are workhorses instead of like someone. Salah, for example, we saw Miles Kelly a little bit yesterday, a little bit cautious because Salah is there. You know, like you don't want to leave Salah one-on-one. That's the opposition's manager adapting you to a good player. People stay with Vinny, right? And Leao is that kind of guy. And I think Arsenal need that guy to have both outlets working. You know what I mean? Not only that, we saw there is a picture going around the PSG game. There was 6 players going on Saka. 6 players going to close down Saka because they know the Arsenal are going to Saka. The ball is just going to him, and they're all running towards him. It's just instructions. And
the thing is, that should be that picture you're talking about. That should be great, because like in football, one of the biggest things you try and do when you're building up is drag teams out of position and move them in the way you want. And you see a team in that position, you should be going, this is brilliant, because now we have players in space on the opposite side of the field. We've got overloads on the opposite side, and we don't make the most of those anywhere near enough.
I said I said, sorry, Jim. I said that in the analysis of the PSG game. I said the difference between the PSG game and the PSG team and Arsenal is that PSG can rely on about 2-3 outlets, that each one of them is someone you can rely on their own. Like if you close down Kvaratskhelia, they'll go to Desiree Doué. If you close them, you'll go to Dembele in the center. Arsenal don't have that. We all know that the creativity is coming from the right side. The stats show that, the graphs show this, eye tests show this, that Arsenal are heavily reliant on giving the ball to Bukayo Saka. And that's why you need different outlets.
I would say, you know, the best example of this is actually Barcelona. Like, a lot of people, like, in terms of Yamal being the level that he is at, and even against Milan, or Inter Milan, we've seen this. So many people are being attracted to him that Rafinha is having a Ballon d'Or season because of the amount of space that he's getting. And I think Seb might have said this, the Spurs fan, he was talking about it after, and he was saying the reason Rafinha is having that type of season is because they have so much quality in attack that they can't mark all of them. And that's why he's getting so much space, because they feel like Yamal is maybe more of a threat in maybe the one-on-one situations, and then he's picking up the pieces and scoring the amount of goals and getting the amount of assists he's getting. So, yeah, I think, just adding that, but we're talking about this as well, like adding that just extra bit to Arsenal in the forward lines would make all the difference. And I think it's just the final, like they're missing their Van Dijk, they're missing their Alisson in terms of like what Liverpool were to get them over the line.
And you do need, and you know, you've just reminded me, you do need that guy who doesn't track back. Do you remember Riyad Mahrez for City? That's the reason why Raheem had one of those seasons too. Remember, Raheem was scoring a lot of goals at a point where they're like, oh, if you look at Pep Guardiola's team, Raheem is getting close to Messi. How many goals he scored within this period? It's because of Riyad Mahrez. People were scared. Mahrez was there. You know that you cannot leave him, you know? And Mahrez was not tracking back. I remember City fans giving out, oh, Mahrez, even Sané when Sané was there. Oh, Sané doesn't track back. But as soon as Sané gets the ball, you're right. The whole team used to draw towards Sané. And guess who was there all the time? Raheem at the right-hand side doing the tap-ins. Raheem at the left-hand side when Riyad Mahrez was at the right hand. So you do need such a player. And I think if people start complaining about such a player coming to your team, then I think they don't know what they're doing. Because if they think that all you need is these guys with the legs all the time tracking back, nah, you don't. Like, look at
it's the system, Patrick. It's the system. People are so obsessed with the control that Arteta does, the control that Arsenal play with. They're so
done
obsessed
with that. I'm also
that
done
they
with
want.
that.
Maybe Arsenal need to play free-flowing football next season to try to actually win the league and just go for it. You know what I mean? Have different elements of the game. For me, one of the main problems is, well, we'll talk about, is Martin Odegaard and the lack of creativity in the center of the pitch. If you have Zubamendi and Martin Odegaard is going to have the same season, you don't need Martin Odegaard. You need someone like a Cole Palmer, for example. You need someone that will create from the center. Because Martin Zubamendi is a guy that gets on the ball a lot, builds from the back, gets the ball to... If Martin Odegaard is not going to be released to play as an attacking midfielder, you don't need him. Just get an attacking midfielder that will do something different, like a Cole Palmer or Kevin De Bruyne. Some of them that, I'm not saying these names, but some of them that ilk. If Arteta goes on and just have Zubamendi, Rice, and Odegaard, and ask Odegaard to drop deep again to pick up the ball, I think that'd be stupid, to be honest. So I think you need, what Patrick said, you need the difference makers to be along the pitch, left, right, center, as well, to be able to go against the Liverpool or Man City next season in the Champions League as well. Martin Odegaard is a big myth for me, to be honest with you. Like, Arteta completely ruined him this season, in my opinion, and he needs to pick up.
He hasn't looked the same since his injury, to be fair.
Yeah, I still think I'm happy to give him a long summer break and see how he comes back. I think he'll come back completely differently.
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to come back to his best?
Yeah, I hope so.
But do you think that Arsenal should go next season with a hope? Like, for example, this season, Arsenal hoped that Martinelli will get the form that he had 2 seasons ago when he had 22 GA. Arsenal hoped that this guy will replicate his season. Do you think Arsenal should actually prepare well for this and get a playmaker that is different than Odegaard in the summer?
The problem with that is we know we need a left winger is a bigger priority, a striker is a bigger priority. We've just spent 50 million on Zubamendi. There comes a point where you go to guarantee that you're raising the level on Odegaard. You're talking, who are you talking about here now? You're talking 80, 90, 100 million pound player.
And even then, it might not be a fit.
Yeah, and I just don't know if we can free up the funds to do that. I'm hoping Zubamendi coming in allows Martin Odegaard to move up the field more. And
like 2 seasons ago, 21 GA. Last season, he was the highest in Europe in creating chances.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping that allows him to do that a bit more. We'll see.
I hope. AMT saying, Rory, it is a small sample size, but...
Martinelli.
GA.
Martinelli. Gabriel Martinelli.
Bro,
No. So,
Stop this.
no, but do you know what? But so he's raising a point that a lot of people raised after yesterday, which is, oh my God, we should have been playing Martinelli in the 9. Martinelli has scored more goals at Anfield than any other away ground than the Emirates, right? That is not because Martinelli plays better against Liverpool than anyone else. It's because Liverpool at Anfield are one of the only teams that will allow him space to run into behind. And moving him centrally yesterday helped do that. It helped stretch them. But we're not going to get that at Goodison Park. We're not going to get that. That's not how it works. And when he plays centrally against any team that plays a low block, he's relatively ineffective. So no, I don't think. One thing I do think is that if we were to bring in like a Gyökeres, I think Martinelli would work well with him because Gyökeres likes to drift out to the left and run the channel. And at that point, Martinelli can move centrally, and that could work well. But no, he's not the number 9.
Yeah, guys, get the likes up. 700 people in the house. Let's get the likes up and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let's get the likes to at least 300, guys. Moving on a little bit from Arsenal. I know, Jamie, let me know if you want to go. Just let me know.
Yeah, I can jump off a half.
Yeah. Moving on. I think before we talk about City and the title race, because there is a point about will City actually be in a title race next season with the way they're playing. I want to talk about Chelsea. I want to hear Dan's thoughts on what happened yesterday. Can you just repeat what you said on the Instagram? Oops.
Oh, I don't know if I remember off the top of my head.
It was glorious.
I wasn't very happy. I think Jackson really, really did let a lot of people down yesterday with that behaviour. And unfortunately, I think that could be incredibly costly in Chelsea's challenge for Champions League football. So, yeah.
You look better without him, Dan.
we probably did. We probably did. I think that was it probably would have happened in the second half with or without him on the pitch, to be honest with you, knowing how Maresca works and tries to sort of figure things out after half time. It's a pattern we've seen repeat itself. But I felt like Chelsea weren't up for that game from the get-go. I think Newcastle, mentality-wise, were switched on, were up for it more than Chelsea, wanted it more. Tough place to go. And 2 minutes in, we were behind when Jackson was on the pitch. But yeah, he let a lot of people down yesterday. And it's a clear red card, obviously, as well, in case anyone's...
Yeah. AMT's asking, Mo, why are you so cringe? It's a question about Gabriel Martinelli. I'm going to tell you why. Because again, it's the trying of make players work, where Arsenal have been here for a while. Like, Arsenal need Gyökeres. Havertz should be the sub. It's done. Like, I think so. Havertz should be off the bench option. If you need another striker, you play Havertz. Gabriel Martinelli is a left winger. Arsenal need to get a left winger. Gabriel Martinelli should be the bench player. I think so. Trying to move players around to make it work, I think Arteta and Arsenal are past this. You disagree with this, Rory? Like, you're past this trial, make this work. No, you need the ready-made players now to win next season. That is why I made this. But anyway, going back to Chelsea.
Even just to tell him, even Man City, the great Man City with Pep Guardiola, who likes changing players everywhere. He made somebody a false 9. He turned Ford into a false 9. It was all good. But guess what? For him to win the Champions League, he had to go get a pure striker who just stands there and just gets the goals. Sometimes you just have to get people who play that position. You have to stop this thing where, we have to 10 Havertz into this. We have to 10 Saka. Somebody said 10 Saka into a 10. I was like, why? If he's one of your best wingers. You know what I mean? Just stop this.
You know, lately...
This overthinking thing, we just stop it.
With the I want to go back to Chelsea, but I just want to mention something. Carlo Garganesi and Nima Tuvali, who both are Italians, they report on Italian football. One of them is Juventus, one of them is an Inter supporter. They have the Italian football podcast, and they were talking about this changing of players. Like Calafiori, he thrived as a centre back. He should have come to Arsenal as a centre back, not a left back. If they wanted a left back, they should have went for a left back, not someone like him. It's the changing positions to make it work. I think sometimes it backfires, but that is just what I think about changing positions for players. Then for Chelsea yesterday, I thought Chelsea played pretty well yesterday. That I released a video and I said that Chelsea deserved Champions League over other teams as well. I thought Chelsea played fantastic yesterday.
In the second half, maybe?
Yeah, fantastic. Amazing.
In
the second half, especially after you change. In the second half, I thought Chelsea deserved to be in the Champions League with that performance. If you watch Nottingham Forest, you can't tell me that this Nottingham Forest team deserves to be in the Champions League over Chelsea, to be honest.
No.
Oh, well, I think Chelsea, if Chelsea miss out, it's because of their own fault and for games like we had earlier on in the season where we've dropped points against.
But I think you'll miss out with. I think it'll be you and Forest are the two teams that are going to miss out.
I think that feels likely at the moment, but I mean, we're going to play the worst Manchester United team in years, maybe ever.
That, guys.
And we've then got to play Nottingham Forest, and I mean, there's a chance that Chelsea can go and beat them.
There is a chance, but I think actually it's a bigger chance that Chelsea beat Man United and beat Nottingham Forest on the last day of the season away at Forest. Like, I think people are ruling this out.
Without a striker, I think it becomes a little bit of a tougher challenge, to be honest with you, because I think we saw how poor Chelsea were even without a striker. We lost a lot of games. We dropped a lot of points, even though Jackson returned and he wasn't exactly like phenomenal. I just think it helped the system a lot in the terms of how Maresca was asking the players to play and what he wanted players to do. It's going to be tough. We're going to need other players to step up, and he's going to just have to try something a little bit different, I think, to catch these teams off guard for the last two games. But
he did try that before. Didn't he play false nine?
What we saw yesterday against Newcastle showed that we can play well, but still not create enough of an opportunity to score and win games or equalise in the sense of yesterday's game. I think we were probably the better team in the second half, even with 10 men. I think we probably played like we had nothing to lose, whereas Newcastle were trying to protect their result, obviously, and then they ended up nicking that goal at the end, and it looked like a comfortable day at the office for them.
I thought I thought Eddie Howe schooled Maresca in the first half.
First half he did.
He's a better manager, Rory. That's what people don't want to say. He's just a better manager.
Yeah, and I feel like Maresca kind of in a few games, Caicedo at right back had worked. So then he's just like, I'll just keep doing that then. That'll work. And really, I think he was only forced to change that because of the red card, which is kind of crazy. And I do think that's a little bit of a problem that, I mean, I still don't think he knows what Chelsea's best lineup is. And I don't think he knows consistently against different opposition how to make little tweaks here and there in the way that Eddie Howe did.
Yeah, I think the massive focus for me is that Caicedo's just one player of the season. And again, it's another player that he's now willing to move out of position to fit other people into the team. And then the fans have just voted him as the player of the season, and the players have too. And it's starting to think, well, hang on a minute, why are we then moving him out of the position that he's just been so good in? He's got plaudits again. People have stopped sort of mentioning the price tag. And then all of a sudden he's playing as this inverted right back. He's so set and so stubborn on inverting his fullbacks that he'll move one of his best players in the team out of position to do so. I think the same with Cole Palmer. Numbers-wise, he's been absolutely exceptional. And then he's now happy to sort of allow him to play in a different role to where he was generating unbelievable numbers. And we've seen his numbers fall off the face of the earth. So, yeah, he's frustrating at times, Maresca, because I agree with you that at times I don't think he knows his best team. And sometimes he chooses what he thinks is his best team, and he'll move his best players into positions where they don't thrive. And I think that is a massive question mark he's got over his head at the moment.
Do we think that Maresca is going to be successful with Chelsea next season if they make Champions League? In the league, even if he's given a summer
question. We ask this question every week.
No, but my point about this is that people said he's great to make Caicedo right back and Lavia's the glue against Liverpool. Now he played Caicedo right back and they didn't play well against in the one half, and people are saying Maresca's this. Someone came with a football terrace and said Maresca out. I don't want this guy. And just I literally just asked him one question: were you happy with Maresca against Liverpool? He's like, yes. Okay, so one game changed your tone completely about Enzo Maresca. I don't get it. Like, I get it if there's like 10 games or 3-4 games you even change the tactics and it doesn't work. I think we just have to give credit to Newcastle. They're just a better team.
I think you could argue, though, that there might be something to say about how Maresca sets up his team being a bit of a weakness and a thorn in Liverpool's side this season, because Arne Slot's mentioned on a couple of occasions how challenging that first game was. And then obviously the second game, we've ended up winning that. I think other than that, I don't really see too much praise in what Maresca's done in a lot of other games, to be honest with you. I think a lot of it's come down to individual moments where players have stepped up. I don't look at Maresca's system a lot and think that was the reason we won that game, or think back to an outstanding performance. I feel like that just hasn't been something we've discussed.
Chelsea still statistically, Dan, are the second best team in the league in terms of creating chances. Your midfield is not that bad when they play on the ball. Off the ball is questionable. I don't think, like, Maresca has questions on the defensive structure, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
You watch Chelsea and you think you have one good aspect of the game, which is the offensive side. The defensive side is not great by him, right? But maybe he's learning that on the job. You get my point? Like maybe he's learning that.
I haven't seen enough of an improvement to suggest that he's learning. And I also haven't seen a personality trait to suggest that he's willing to learn either, because he's been so stubborn in what he's decided to do this season. I haven't seen him adapt as of yet. I've seen him be stubborn and stuck in his ways that have cost Chelsea a lot of points. So I don't think
has improved over the years.
Arteta has, but I think we've seen proof. I think what we've seen with Maresca is an almost like mirror image repeat of what happened with him at Leicester last season. I think we've seen that he hasn't changed what he tried to do. He hasn't changed how he sets up his team. Defensively, I said the issues were there at the beginning of the season. We were getting away with it. And now that's caught up with us. Our goal difference has been decreasing pretty rapidly. I think Chelsea have struggled to score goals at times this season, which is a whole nother issue where someone needs to speak with the recruitment team and say, look, you have to go and sign someone now. It's been way too long that you've relied on just Nicolas Jackson as your striker. But I'm not sold on Maresca yet. I'm really not. There's a lot of questions.
None of us.
If we were to play in the Europa League next season, I honestly don't think he'd win it.
Yeah, I think Europa League, it might be strong, but if Chelsea sign players, how far is Chelsea team from being one of the best in the league, to be honest? A goalkeeper, Rudiger.
Are Chelsea not where they're expected to be, like right now? I know it's obviously up in the air a little bit, but like they want to. Do they have the same amount of points as
level
last
at the
season?
Last season, I think.
Yeah.
At the end or at this stage?
No, right now. We're level.
So, they're on the same
stage.
No. So we finished on 63.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
you're at the end then.
They've improved. But like, I mean, in the sense of like the expectations of Chelsea has changed over since the ownership, basically. And it's not a team. And Dan, we were talking about this before. What all fans would expect is obviously Chelsea winning Premier League, Champions Leagues, and they've been one of the most successful teams in this decade in terms of trophies. But right now, like with everything that's going on and the team and new manager and like the way the ownership model is, like I think top 4 is what they expect. So like if he gets that, or top 5, if he gets that, then they're happy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what, and they would just look at it from the revenue perspective and say, well, we have Champions League revenue now.
Yeah, I think Champions League is probably what they expect. I mean, I set my expectations at the beginning of the season that we should be 5th, improving on last year, improve the point tally, get ourselves a domestic challenge or win a trophy, and probably get the Conference League. I don't think he's done well enough in moments, and I don't think we've seen him get the best out of a number of different players. And I think that's where, although we're there on points and he's done well in that sense, and he's picked up results early on, I just think that massive period post-Christmas and the decline of some of the best players at Chelsea right now has been a real issue under Maresca. And I think that's what the fans are focused on that aren't happy with him right now.
I think you.
I also don't think we've progressed this season. I still don't think we've got up to the level that we started the season at yet. I think we dropped way off of it, and I don't think we've quite got to it yet either, where we were those first sort of 7 to 10 games.
I don't think Chelsea are a more dangerous team now than they were at the end of last season in the final few weeks of Poch.
No, we went 5 games. We won 5 games in a row.
Yeah.
So you don't think Chelsea are a threat next season, regardless of the summer transfer window?
I think it depends on who they sign, but
it is a summer window dependent.
Yeah, well, if they get Champions League, they can spend completely different than if they didn't. Do you know what I mean?
Well, news broke about an hour ago that Liam Delap is already preferring the Manchester United move over Chelsea. So that would be like one of the prime targets that Chelsea have obviously spoken about and been linked with. So who then, if they don't get Champions League football, I'd be worried about what Chelsea might be able to attract, to be honest with you.
I'm surprised by that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just surprised by Delap going over there.
I think he's a northerner. And I think he's settled up there, and I think he knows that area of the country well, and he probably doesn't want to leave it. Obviously, his dad had many years at Stoke.
Yeah, but also because he was at City, I'm just
Grew up
being
at City,
sour
yeah.
to be
So
honest. I'm just
he
being sour. To be honest.
probably still. I mean, he probably doesn't live in Manchester, but he's probably still got links there, and he probably has family around that area.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't be shocked for him to go to Manchester United. To be honest with you,
yeah. But what
Yeah.
I was about to say something on Chelsea. I just feel like if you get a competent keeper and you get obviously like the Rudiger thing, obviously somebody was saying it's because they're selling him because of an issue. You know, Madrid always get rid of somebody when there's an issue with them or something, or when they're done. But if you get somebody like a Rudiger or just get a few players that I think have experience and are ready to go, we're talking about like the age of 28. Like I don't want you guys. For me, if I was a Chelsea fan, I don't want you guys start getting players that are younger again. If you just get certain players, especially a defender who's a leader, like the way City after Company left with Ruben Diaz, or the way Liverpool went to get a leader in Van Dijk. Yes, he was young, but he was a leader. I think you guys would be good enough. I think you guys with a very competent striker who's there to finish, score in certain moments, a competent keeper. Keeper is the first one because your keeper is comedy. He is the biggest comedian I've ever seen. So if you get a competent keeper and a competent defender, I think you're done. I think Cole Palmer is good enough to be your number 10. Kunku, I don't know what's going to happen to him. But with Enzo, with Caicedo, I actually admire your team. You know, by the way, low-key, there's players in your team I would like to pick up. Gusto, look at that. It's just a matter of getting certain players that are good enough to lead those young players. And then we'll see how good your manager is. For me, I think Meleska, there's a bit of potential in there. But again, as I said about Arteta, this is the Pep Guardiola, John Clive syndrome where they want to control too much and they're very stubborn, but it is what it is. But I hope you guys get these experienced players and I think you can do.
Yeah,
good.
he's
And
so set on his way of playing. It's just
it's
right. It's so
more, you know yourself, it's Pep Guardiola's students. They are
he's
Pep
so
Guardiola's
sad.
yeah,
That
but
even Pep
I think
Guardiola.
I see more adaptation in Pep than I do in some of his students.
I was
because feel
about
like
to say that. I was
Pep is
about
the
to say
master
that.
of his own tactics and his own philosophy, and he's developed that. I feel like the students are copying his homework, and when something doesn't work, they don't actually have the next idea because they're not quite as in tune with the game as Pep is. And I think that's the issue. If you're going to mimic your play style around someone else and learn from someone else, you have to understand it even more. And I actually think that's where someone like Arteta has done better than that. I think Arteta has shown that although he's probably learned a lot off of Pep and has been educated by him, he also has his own thoughts around the game and he'll do things in a slightly different way than what Pep would do. And we've seen him do that, and it's worked to the benefit of his Arsenal side in recent years. And I just don't think I see that enough with Maresca. I see times when he'll go with a system that just clearly isn't working, and he won't know what to do. And we'll see him. I mean, so many times we've seen him fail to prepare for the game that he's got. It's almost like he's wasted the week, and then at halftime he has to get to work and start trying to adjust things. And that's exactly what Rory brought up earlier, that Eddie Howe has spent that week looking at what Chelsea do, what they're likely going to do, and he just completely caught Maresca off guard. And I just don't think Maresca's quite on that level yet. And he may get better with time. But unfortunately, I think when you're at a club like Chelsea, and I've said it before, I don't think you're afforded that time. There's demands that have to be met. And I think winning is one of those. And unfortunately, when you're learning on the job, we see that sort of delays the process of winning. We've seen that at Arsenal, who have done so well, but Arteta's been improving and learning every season that they still haven't quite got over the line, even though they're closer than ever. I just think Maresca's a little bit too far off of where this team needs to be, especially with it being so young and inexperienced. I think you then need a manager that's the complete opposite to what the players are to guide them and educate them. And I think we've seen with Chelsea's discipline being the worst in the Premier League this season that there is an issue, and there does need to be experienced in the dressing room to sort of educate these players when to keep their head, when to keep calm. I think yesterday was the prime example of that. We saw players like Bruno, we saw an experienced manager in Eddie Howe, we saw a Newcastle team that know how to win now, we saw players like Dan Burn. They know exactly what to do in that moment now. They know how to go and win games. They know how to play in that moment. And I think we saw the inexperience of Chelsea. We saw Enzo Fernandez losing his head, trying to wind up Bruno. Bruno ends up getting the winner. We saw Dan Burn well aware on the pitch. He actually gets the assist for the winner because he's so aware of what was going on, and Chelsea were all over the place. He pulls right off. The pass gets played over the top to him. I just think that's the sort of thing this Chelsea team doesn't currently have. And I think that's proving to be an issue right now.
Yeah, 100%. Z here is saying Jackson has cost us UEFA Champions League. Terminate his contract now. A lot of people are saying that he shouldn't be playing for the club again. By the way.
Well, I said financially, he may have cost Chelsea more than he'll ever be worth as a player.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
He
So
had
I
clear,
don't know
by the
whether
way, he
that's
had
true,
clear
but-
intent. He had clear intent.
Nah, he did.
100%.
He went.
He
in.
looks,
It's a
doesn't he? You
clearance.
see him look around and then he decides to front up with his elbow or his
Yeah.
forearm first. And
You know,
yeah.
Do you know what's funny, Dan? It's the fact that with VAR and VAR right now, you can't be doing that. And the fact that he looked around is he's trying to say, the camera's looking at me. That's why I was laughing. I was like, don't be silly.
I find it weird because I mean Tyrone Mings literally did something similar almost to Alex Scott, and it wasn't picked up, it wasn't carded. So I do wonder with VAR where they're sort of drawing the line.
Yeah, I think the big difference with the Mings one was that he didn't look directly at where Scott was.
He
So
just
I think
knew
he
where
probably
he was.
knows
Yeah.
knows he's there, but because he hasn't looked and because he's in control, he's in possession of the ball.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's clumsily. I think he knows what he's doing, but I think that's probably the difference. I think the issue for Jackson was just how obvious it was, like the fact that A, he's looked at him, and B, they're not even ready to jump for the ball yet. Like the ball's not even in.
Well, Jackson's
the picture.
miles off of where the pass was played because he has to sort
Yeah.
of propel himself into where the ball was landing and the player was. I think Botman read it better than Jackson, didn't he? But I think it also highlighted actually how poor Jackson is in terms of aerially being dominant and aerially trying to like win that sort of battle when the ball goes long or is played over the top. I just don't think that's his game at all. And I think you saw he's miles away from it. He doesn't quite know how to jump to protect the ball in terms of winning it. And ultimately, what he did ended up costing his team the game.
Yeah, 100%. Why people say Arsenal is the best defense, but lost 21 points from leading positions? How is that the best defense? I have an answer. I'm not sure Rory want to answer this.
Well, I mean, statistically, Arsenal have had the best defense this season in terms of we've conceded the fewest goals in the Premier League, and I think we conceded the second fewest in the Champions League.
And by far the fewest chances in the league.
Yeah, and I would say in terms of like the dropping points from leading positions, I don't think that's entirely on the defense. I think that's that's entirely on the squad, because one of the biggest things that we've had this season, which we didn't normally, was getting ourselves into winning positions. I mean, a couple of them were down to red cards that we got, but outside of that, we were in winning positions, and from front to back, the intensity drops off, and so we invite more pressure on ourselves. So yeah, I don't think it's
last part is that Man City drawing against Southampton. If I'm really like, listen, we had this discussion of straight facts just for like 2 minutes. Will City, with Kevin De Bruyne leaving and Florian Wirtz is linked to Real Madrid or stuff, or Bayern Munich, I'm sorry, will City actually be challenging next season? Are we putting like, just like, if I watch this, to be honest with you, when I'm watching Man City now, I'm not sure that's a good team. Like that is like a title winning team. Foden fell off a cliff. Doku's good, but he's not great. Savinho, haven't seen him for a bit. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of players at Man City that are not like there to like. I don't think they're like title winning players. There's a lot of players that are not. But we assume because it's Pep Guardiola that they're just gonna go and be one of the favorites. But I'm watching them. The football is not like authoritative as it was. It's not great.
It's disappointing, isn't it? Oh, go ahead.
yeah. No, go on.
Oh, no. Sorry. It's disappointing. And I think I've been like a broken record saying this is not great. It hasn't been great since last season. Do you know that the football for City was going down? Even if you look at how City are, the signs were there last season. Last season, teams could easily just get past us, bypass us. It's just the fact that Rodri and Foden decided to pick us up, and Foden decided to say, you know what? You've given me the freedom. KDB is not here. I will score the goals. And then Rodri was just having his season of phenomenal. But this, how can I say it? It's the football, where it's going. I think Thierry Henry said it the other day. It's becoming very complicated, very robotic. It's becoming so stale. It's like everything has to be controlled. The player has to stand there. This individual has to stand there. The reason why the football did not look good more, I'll give you a simple answer. Do you know who he brought for this game? He brought in players he knows that they will not go outside what he wants. And the thing is, when Arteta was called a control freak, I was like, that statement should have gone to Pep. Because if you look at Bernardo Silva, what has Bernardo Silva done in the 3 years at City? 3 years at City recently, just after the treble? Nothing. It's just, he just takes the ball, he just rotates it over and over again. City back in the days could pass the ball and kill you with passes, right? Like, obviously, this Arteta, Pep thing, this whole tiki-taka thing is, we move our opposition. But we used to do that and then pounce. Now there's no point. We just pass the ball, 1,000 passes, pass it backwards. If you just sit there, we'll pass it sideways, we'll try this, and then we'll try cross it, and nothing happens. And then when you give us back the ball, we'll rotate it as we'll go round and round again. There's just nothing at all that's exciting. And you know why I think is the other issue is our midfield, I think, is out of legs. And what I've noticed with Pep Guardiola is he started flooding that midfield, and he doesn't want the midfielders to get in the box anymore. He doesn't even want the midfielders to go and overload on the sides anymore. So even our wingers, because that's why I keep telling people, stop throwing stones at Savio and Doku. If you look at Sane and Raheem, Riyad Mahrez and Raheem, they used to have support from David Silva, KDB. Even Bernardo Silva could go, even Gundogan could go do 1-2s with Sane and then try dink the ball over for Sane. That's not happening. Guess what? All the midfielders are just bunching down the middle, scared of transition, they're scared of counter-attacks because they don't have the legs. That's what he's scared of. What's more embarrassing also, guys, I don't know if you watched this. I was saying this and some City fans were like, but Patrick, it worked during the treble. Again, the treble has spoiled City fans. They think that's the only way. Why would you play 3 centre-backs against Southampton who are sitting back? Does that make sense? If Southampton are sitting back, why don't you have 2 full-backs, like how we have Nunes and O'Reilly? Tell them to join into the attack, pressure Southampton, and O'Reilly and Nunes have been creating so much for City, but no, he went back to 3 centre-backs. Again, he's scared that as soon as we get countered, these 3 centre-backs are good at defending 1v1 situations. But it's useless. 3 centre-backs against Southampton doesn't work. 3 centre-backs against Arsenal makes sense because you do need people to stop Sakas and stop these Martinellis. But what are you stopping from Southampton? Southampton had no clear attack at all. They didn't attack us at all. But yet you had all this. And only at the end, he makes me laugh. That's when he removes 1 centre-back and then tells the other 2 centre-backs to sit back. He brings on Mamouche and sort of goes on the attack. Mamouche almost scores twice. And then we look like more of an attacking team. It's just frustrating. And the thing is, as I said more, it's the treble season that keeps coming back. Because some City fans, they obviously were on cloud 9. They just think that whatever happened on the treble, it is the best thing in football, and we have to do that. I don't know. That's all I want to say. I don't know about you guys. For me, it's boring football, and it's not exciting anymore. And you want to talk about tiki-taka? Look at Enrique. He's a tiki-taka guy, but look at what he's doing at PSG.
Yeah, I think City will probably hit 80 to 90 points next season. So that could put them in a title race. It might not, depending on how good a season Liverpool or Arsenal or anyone else maybe has. But I think over the last couple of months, I think City have only conceded 3 goals in their last 8 games. Haven't lost a game since Forest, which was end of Feb, maybe start of March. A while ago. They've not lost a game in a while. And I think Pep has basically, and it took him a while, to be honest, has basically gone, right, I need to sort out how many goals we're conceding because it's costing us game after game after game.
2 months ago, Rory, 2 months.
2 months ago. And in that time, City have won quite a few games, maybe 1-0 or 2-0. And that's genuinely saved them in terms of getting into the Champions League. So I can understand why he's done that. And it has made it more robotic and it has made it boring, and City aren't scoring as much as normal, but they're also not conceding. And ultimately, I think that's probably got them over the line for the Champions League next season. So the big thing will be in the summer, obviously, you're going to have RORY come back in. You assume that he'll be able to hit the level that he did previously, even if it takes a little while. You bring in probably one more player with serious legs into that midfield. I've seen Reinders has been linked to them today. I think it'll be fine. And then I think he just needs to give a bit more freedom to the attack again. You know, I don't really understand the reliance on players like Foden when you've got a Marmouche. I mean, for me, it's no coincidence that Foden hadn't started a game in the previous 5 and they'd won all 5, and then he starts and you draw to Southampton. I think there's been a little bit of an over-reliance on the players that have done it previously because he trusts them. but you're now not trying to play in the way that you did when they performed. So if you're not playing in that way, why would you trust that they can get the output that you need? Whereas Marmoush has done that pretty much since he joined. So yeah, there's a couple of things like I find it crazy that against Southampton you'd have Marmoush, Savino, and Doku all on the bench when they're the three players that can create something out of nothing. And instead you just knock the ball around. So yeah, I think there are question marks. I can understand why he's like locked it up defensively. But yeah,
They need a lot in the window, by the way. They need a lot in this window.
I don't think they need that much.
I think it's midfielders, though. I think this City team, and I'm telling people, though, they will be obviously people.
Rodri's back, so you don't need a lot of midfielders. You need an attacking midfielder.
No. We do. Like I thought at first. You know what I thought? I genuinely thought that we can salvage some of these midfielders. I think I am going to agree with some. There was an Irish on Irish TV. There was a commentator, and he's like, they sort of deceived me for a minute. It's like, I think they need to say goodbye to all the midfielders they have, the ones that from the old school. I think even Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, KDB, all of them, they just have to walk out together. And I know that it's bad. It's a risk. People are like, oh, if you do this, you're destroying your whole midfield. I'm like, no, look at PSG's midfield. They literally got rid of, I forgot his name. I used to like him. Yeah, the Italian midfielder. He's older now. Verratti. I thought that Verratti would never leave PSG. I thought even at a certain age, he'd still be there. But look at that PSG midfield now. I just feel like if we get a number 8, a good box-to-box number 8, and we get another sort of number 10, which is different from Foden. I still think Foden can still be a number 10, but just get another number 10 that's different from Foden. I think we're good. I just feel like Doku and Savio can still do it. I've seen Doku do it.
They can't win you the league. They can't win you the league.
Do you think Doku and Savio can win us a league?
No.
With a competent
not playing in the way Pep currently does.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you so much. Like
you'd have to play more like Luis Enrique's doing, or something like that. Hansi Flick. I think they'd even do better in an Ange team than what they're currently doing at City. I just think Pep's restricting those players so much. And also, what frustrated me was hearing what the players had to say afterwards, almost complaining how Southampton played. I think that's such a huge mentality issue because they almost blamed the fact that they couldn't win that game of football because Southampton chose to play a different way. But I think what people are forgetting is football doesn't have to be played in one exact way, and you can set your team up in different manners to get results. And I think we saw that, didn't we, years ago under Claudio Ranieri? Set it up so differently to what everyone else was doing, and it ended up winning him a league. And I think we saw like Forest benefit off of that this season. A couple of other managers who have been fluid and willing to adapt have just sort of changed it up in certain games. And I feel like Lallana yesterday or a couple of days ago, he kind of read what Pep was going to do and he made it difficult for Pep, and he ended up getting a really good result that meant that they didn't finish level with Derby for Southampton. And I think a little bit more of that for Southampton this season may have got them a better points tally. But also for City, they've got to switch that up if they want to get back to winning leagues, because you're not going to win a Premier League if someone doesn't bow down to you and play in a certain way. And I think that actually almost takes something away from the titles they might have won in recent years, because they've almost had it easy, if you like, if teams have played in a certain way that plays to their strengths. As soon as someone's challenged them and done something different, they're out here complaining. And that, for me, is a poor mentality to have. You've got to be able to win.
We used to break them down, though, isn't it?
They complained. They complained about Arsenal fans when they kept saying, "But we play against low blocks all the time." And now Diaz is complaining about the same thing because Southampton played the low block, and I'm like, "Why?"
As well, hasn't it? That these teams now are a little bit less fearful of City. I think that season where Haaland was unstoppable, they were petrified of going near him, and it was like, oh, he's that good, we can't do anything. Whereas now they're like, let's go and give him a bit of a game. Let's make this more difficult for him. He's been out injured. He might not be up to pace, and he's pretty much non-effective. And a couple of their other players, City, were ineffective as well because they were frustrated at how Southampton played. And I just don't find that as an excuse that's warranted, especially from a player like Ruben Diaz. I think he needs to go back and learn on that one.
Oh, they went against him, though. I think the fan base, even Pep went against him. But I'm just saying, do you see what Southampton did? That's not even the worst low block I've ever seen. I remember there was a Southampton team that it took Raheem to score, isn't it? I think a last-minute one. That Southampton team used to lock us up and cause us issues. That was nothing. It's just, I think it's the players. I think that's why the guys like, if this was the old City team, we break them down. But this new City team.
But you had
KDB
higher quality. You had higher quality than this.
That's that's what I'm saying. Like,
forget
look
about
at this. Look at this KDB. This KDB can't even do a simple pass.
Patrick, this is the longest Pep's been at any side by quite some stretch now as well. Do you think that it's got to the point where his message is starting to sound very repetitive? A lot of the players are sort of maybe no longer buying into him, or the players have bought into him so much they don't see that they're able to do things in any sort of different way. Do you think that the end is obviously closer for Pep than we think, but how close do you think that's going to be?
Do you know what you've just said is right? You know why it's right? Because if you have watched City this season, right? City have only played great football, or have, where City, when you lose the ball, the press within a few seconds. I think it's the players. You're right. I think KDB, Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, and all these guys, I think they are tired of listening to the same voice. Because let's not forget, KDB went to Belgium and had a very great game. And I think people are saying, why is he performing for Belgium? And then one of my friends, he's a football analyst, and he used to do videos with me. He called me and said, do you know why KDB is playing like that? He's like, because he's tired of hearing the same voice, and it's a lack of motivation. That's why he says there's two things that have to happen. It's either we change a manager, or the guys that have been here for so long have to leave. Because if you watch the games for City, when we play good, Nico Gonzalez is on the pitch, Mamouche is on the pitch, Doku. It's the guys who are new, who haven't won trophies, who haven't done much with Pep, are the ones actually running for him. But if you look at the other guys, I think they're just there saying, we know what you're doing, here we go again. So I think they have to go. I think
that's what the likes of Ferguson did so well, wasn't it? Was he would move those players on when it all become a little bit stale, and he would refresh it, and he'd bring in a new assistant coach to kind of change up the message and play in different ways. And I think that's why his success was spread out over such a long period of time. And I think Pep might need to take a leaf from that book at the moment.
For me, it's not good enough to win the leagues, that City. We'll see next season. I don't think City will be as strong as they were before, to be honest with you. I don't.
One thing I think people are massively underestimating is the impact of the Club World Cup. I think the fact that Liverpool and Arsenal get to have a pretty, not unprecedented, but an unusually long summer break in terms of they'll have 5 weeks off pretty much, then a 4 or 5 week preseason. Whereas for City, if you reach the final of the Club World Cup, same with Chelsea, the Club World Cup finals in like the 13th of July.
Yes, it's the same as what an international tournament is. You know, the World Cup is like mimic the dates. So yeah, for sure. I think that's massive, isn't it? The Club World Cup and how it's going to affect those two teams, as much as they might benefit from it financially. Actually, in terms of preparation, I mean, I don't really know how that works, especially if the clubs are going to be wanting to do a pre-season. You know, it's different, isn't it? With an international tournament, players come back at different spells, and you can rotate. I feel like the Man City and Chelsea pre-season tours are going to be made up of the youth teams, to be honest with you. And it'll be a marketing tour.
You have to.
Yeah.
I think it's like the beginning of July or something like this.
The final,
what happens, Mo,
is
like if, say, for example, like the Euros, right? England and Spain had their players come back later than pretty much everyone else, bar the other, semi-finalists. But you get like drips and drabs coming back as they fall out. As a club going all together, your whole squad goes with you and extends their whole season because they're in the tournament as a group, as a one. So the players are going to all have to, have time off at a certain time. It'll be interesting.
FIFA they put a lot of money in it to force teams to like.
And we've heard enough from players that FIFA.
The 13th of July, exactly.
They do not care about players' welfare. They don't. That's the one thing that the PFA will stand up for. And there's a voice from footballers is that they're playing too many games, or even though they earn the money, they know they're being like used way too much. So the only way to solve it, because I don't see any backing down from FIFA, because once the money starts hitting the bank account, they're not going to sort of go back to what they were earning previously. The teams have to start building bigger squads. That's what's going to happen. And you'll end up with, 25 will be an absolute bare minimum, and you'll be getting closer to 30, I think, sooner rather than later, with the amount of fixtures these guys are playing.
The other thing I worry about is that the clubs have been told they have to field basically their strongest team.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah,
so they have to field the best players, and then off the back of an exhausting season, you're now going out to America, and a lot of those pitches are really not good pitches, and players have picked up injuries in friendlies on those pitches. So you're playing if you reach the final, you're playing 7 full strength teams, 7 games with your full strength team on American pitches, it's not just about the fatigue then. It's also about like how many injuries you're going to potentially pick up that also keep players out at the start of the season. I think it's going to be...
Well, that's the
I
same
think
as
it's
an
gonna be
international tournament, though, Rory, is it? In a sense that they're going to play, not the pitches. I understand that. That's completely different. I agree with you on that. That's dangerous. We've got the World Cup coming up, Mexico, USA, Canada in a year's time as well. We're going to see injuries off the back of those pitches for sure. I'm absolutely certain. But in terms of the players going away and full strength players and the best players playing far into tournaments in the summer, it's pretty normal. I guess it's just not normal to have it back to back to back, is it?
Well,
The Euros, Club World Cup.
Normally
World
you get
Cup.
one summer off in between.
Yeah.
But also you'd be coming back and you'd be looking at, Arsenal, maybe like Declan Rice looked really tired at the start of the season, but you'd be looking at going, well, okay, but Liverpool also had X, Y, and Z player. Like every club had their biggest players pretty much at the Euros. Whereas now it's like it's exclusively on Chelsea and Man City from the Premier League. I think it's I think it's going to be interesting to see how it starts.
It is going to be.
You know what I'm excited about is like, the fact that City are getting rid of players and Chelsea are doing the same thing. So when do we get rid of them? Do we get rid of them after the Club World Cup? Because KDB, I know the contract is gone, so he might not even play for us. He might be playing for Miami, Inter, or not.
I think that's the only exciting thing, isn't it? Is that these players, it might sort of force these teams into making things happen a little bit quicker, or any other teams that are in it, because they realise there's going to be money and incoming from these players playing. They want them there for the Club World Cup. So some teams might be a little bit more proactive about their business, which could make things a little bit more exciting that we get to see him.
So what do you do with somebody's contract? It's like KDB's contract is done. And
you have to. Okay, I actually read that. You actually have to extend the contract because contracts end in June 30th. Mm-hmm. So it's either you have to extend it or you have to actually pay. So Real
Madrid midway through,
piss.
KDB will like, cheers for the group stages, guys.
It's actually true. Because listen, Real Madrid just took the piss out of Liverpool. He actually offered him 1 million to allow Trent to leave before the end of June.
They should have said yes to that.
1 million. They said 1 million for the half a month worth of contract so you can pay in the Club World Cup.
They want him there. Are you guys going to take it? I don't know.
It's just today. This is just today.
But then Trent can join them for if they make the knockout stages.
Yes, it's actually crazy
for that for free.
But there is something that they haven't even figured out in a Club World Cup. Can you register the player after?
I bet you can't. They're not going to allow it, are they?
So you cannot register the player after, because
is that
otherwise
not why they're opening up the window beforehand to give teams the opportunity to do it?
Yeah. But the contract of Trent ends in June 30th, so he can't literally sign the contract with Real Madrid.
What I get around here is like what you're saying. If Trent's got $1 million in wages to go, Real Madrid will go, look, we'll pay the last 2 weeks of his contract. This is what it will cost. We'll tear yours up. We'll start ours from this date. That might be the loophole that they get to register them in that window before.
Kevin De Bruyne halfway to the Club World Cup. I'm out, guys. I'm going to New York. I'm playing for.
I think that's what Pep say that if because they're asking him, he's like, oh, if only it gets to the later stages, that's when we have to see what to do. But that's funny. Imagine if, obviously, okay, this is a funny scenario. Imagine if maybe he is with Inter, so Inter Miami, and then plays for City.
Yeah, Inter Miami like sign a pre-contract because they're like, we want him to play against with us now.
That'll be funny, isn't it?
We'll see how it goes.
He knocks us out at the later stages.
But listen, people,
Club World Cup, is it? Are we going to refer to this as international club football? Is that what it's going to be?
God knows.
Wallahi, God knows. I don't know.
Literally, God knows.
This has been a great show, guys. Rory Talks Football. He just released a video about the comeback yesterday, about Arsenal comeback. So go and check out Rory. He's doing great content at the current moment. Fantastic videos, of course. There's going to be more spicy ones about the transfers, of course. Dan, go check Dan, of course. VDB Dan in the description as well. True City fan, of course, is here. Patrick, of course, and the Jamie story, along with Staffy and Tom Little. I will see you guys tomorrow. Or not. We'll talk about it later. And I'll see you guys soon. And we are out of here, people.